In my 2022 wrap-up videos, I gave really high praise to Chained Echoes, even crowning it my game of the year. However, a lot of you in the comments had never heard of it, and since this is still a relatively fresh release, I thought I'd make a video all about it and tell you all exactly what makes it so special. Now let's start with the first thing that grabs your attention, and that is the visuals. Obviously, it has an absolutely gorgeous pixel art style with some really vibrant colors. Now, here's something I want to say. A lot of games do this, and JRPGs are particularly guilty of this throwback style. And there's a lot of indie games that make use of this style, like Undertale and Crosscode, and even some of the big boys at Square Enix, like Octopath Traveler. Now, some of these games look fantastic in their own right, but in my opinion, don't really evolve any kind of pixel style to be updated with modern technology. Now, obviously, the HD 2D games are the exception because they have 3D environments, modern spell effects, but the character sprites are of similar proportions to something you might find on the Super Nintendo, and the animations are pretty limited as well. And while I respect that they're working within the restrictions of the original consoles they're being inspired by, again, I just wish they would take better use of modern technology to evolve it in cool ways. Here in Chained Echoes, the animations of the characters, there's more frames of animation, there's more detailed environments, and even as you're exploring the world, there's some amazing parallax scrolling going on. Now, in my opinion, the only other game that really does something cool and innovative and just mind-blowing when it comes to pixel artwork is Eastward, an adventure game that came out last year. Now, I'm sure I'm going to get tons of comments saying that there are other games that evolve pixel art in cool ways, and I'm sure there are, but I'm specifically talking about JRPGs. Now, I'd be remiss not to talk about Sea of Stars, but that's not out yet, and it does look fantastic, but we'll get to that soon enough. But to say the least, Chained Echoes has a really distinct visual art style that's making really great use of pixel work in cool ways. Next, I want to talk about the story. Now, let's all be honest with each other. JRPGs are really bad at getting going right away and just letting you play in earnest. A lot of them have slow openings, over-explain the story, or just a lot of tutorials that go on and on. Even my favorite game of all time, Persona 4, is particularly guilty of this. It takes a good 4 to 5 hours before the game really lets you loose and explore the town and just do everything that Persona is known for. Now, in my opinion, the best example of a game getting going right away is Final Fantasy VII. The opening bombing mission just gets you going right away. You're jumping off a train, you're getting into battle, you're understanding what's going on with the world. It just throws you headfirst into the story, and there's just no messing around. Now, with Chained Echoes, I feel like it has a similarly strong opening. Now, what's interesting is it has what you think is a typical JRPG opening where you're waking up and your mom's cooking you food and you think you're in a quiet village, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Instead, your mom tells you to get your ass up and then just slaps the shit out of you. As a player, this is so unexpected and just jostles you out of whatever lull you might be in and demands your attention. I just love this. But that wasn't real either. It ended up being all a dream, and you wake up on an airship on the heels of invading an enemy territory. And again, like Final Fantasy VII, it just throws you headfirst into the action and headfirst into the story. And this is just one of the many main characters. But what I appreciate is that you actually play out this scenario and you get to understand the character in deeper ways instead of it being told to you. And again, in most JRPGs, you'll play as a protagonist, and characters will join your party slowly throughout the game, and you don't always get a ton of context on their backstory or even why they're joining your party. And all the characters here are the protagonists in their own way, similar to Final Fantasy VI. And like Final Fantasy VI, there's a moment where the party splits up and you have a chance to play out 3 mini stories in whatever order you want. Again, I love this. This is really great character building, because in that moment where it splits the party up, it mixes and matches characters that normally wouldn't interact with each other, so they get to know each other in different ways, which I love. And what Chained Echoes lacks in voice acting and traditional production value, it more than makes up for in the way it presents the story. Next, let's move on to the combat, and where I think this game truly shines brightest. Now, much like games with pixel art were novel for a time, so were throwback JRPGs with turn-based combat. However, technology has advanced in a lot of ways over the last decade, and even I could boot up RPG Maker and make a turn-based combat system in minutes. Simply having turn-based combat in your game has completely lost its novelty, if you ask me. However, teams over the years have found ways to innovate and keep it fresh. Obviously, with Persona, it has this weakness system where you get to have follow-up attacks, and if you weaken all the enemies, you get to do all-out attacks. It just creates a really great rhythm to the combat. But I think the game that really pulled turn-based combat out of the gutter was Bravely Default. It had the Brave and Default system where you could defend and save up turns for later and then pull off multiple attacks in one big turn. You could control the encounter rate and you could speed up the combat, which is a discussion for another video. And just when I thought all fresh ideas for turn-based combat were spent, here comes Chained Echoes. At just a base level, it has all the quality of life features you'd expect, like being able to see the upcoming turn order, swapping out other party members on the fly without wasting a turn, and animations that aren't 10 hours long. They're cool here, but they're to the point. But the real creme de la creme here is the overdrive system. Any action that you take influences where this little bar moves. And what you're trying to do is keep it within the green zone, because if it's in the green zone, you do more damage, you take less damage, and your spells and abilities cost less to do. However, you don't want to overdo it and be in the red, because that means you'll have decreased attack and decreased defense. You'll be really vulnerable. So it's this really fine balance of trying to stay in that green zone while also making sure you do the best moves possible. It just never gets boring. Now, the one knock against Chained Echoes is its leveling system. You don't gain experience points like you would in a traditional RPG. Instead, what happens is you earn points after each completed boss battle, and then you can spend those points to unlock new abilities or get significant stat increases. It doesn't have that same dopamine hit that you would after gaining a traditional level, but it's interesting in its own right. Now, all of this is to say that this is just one man's opinion. Some don't like pixel art. I totally get it. Some don't even like turn-based combat. I totally understand. However, I just want to say that this is more than another throwback JRPG. And don't just take my words for it. I mean, look at the critical reviews. On OpenCritic, it's got a 90, one of the highest reviewed games of 2022. The Steam reviews are all super high. And for a game that's only $25 is this good and is probably going to take you 30 to 40 hours to finish, it's hands down one of the best values in gaming right now. Now, if you like JRPGs and want more in-depth analysis like this, make sure you subscribe, because I'm going to be doing tons of reviews this year. I'm going to be hitting them really hard. So basically any JRPG you can think of that you're going to want to see a review on, I'm probably going to do it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.